Alright, it is time to give my unscripted thoughts on Pokemon Generation 2, or Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. I've been very excited to talk about this one, and you'll find out why at the end. So, Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. I loved Red and Blue and Yellow, and I definitely wanted more. I was excited. I wanted, but I didn't want to keep replaying Red, Blue, and Yellow, so I wanted new. And then as we were getting new information about the new features Gold and Silver had, I was excited. I mean, an in-game time clock because certain Pokemon could only be caught at night, or certain events could only be found during the day. This was revolutionary for its time. I know this might not seem like a big deal, but you have to understand, in the late '90s, early 2000s, this was just revolutionary. I mean, the closest thing I can maybe think of, this would be like how I imagine my parents' generation probably reacted when color TVs got released to the public. Just absolutely mind blowing for the time. So Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. So I remember when I finally had the chance to get it. So just like I said in the last video, I only got games like at Christmas time or birthday. So the games came out, I know it was October of 2000. I want to say October 15th. But so what I done is I just set birthday money aside and reserved the game. I reserved Silver. I will never forget going into Walmart that morning and how excited I was. We were on the way to church. I didn't care. Popped in the game, started playing. And I'd read about so much in magazines, and it was just cool to actually be like holding it in my hand. I remember Chikorita was my starter. I was reading the magazines, and that was the starter I instantly just fell in love with because I just loved the design, and even the name was fun to say. It's still fun to say. And it's funny because I know Chikorita is probably like one of the most unpopular starters ever created. But I love it. I'm absolutely picking it when Pokemon ZA comes out, or AZ comes out. Um, but I also love the music, the fact the game was fully in color and not just one color. And also, so I didn't notice this at first, but I thought it was kind of cool. So all the gym leader types that didn't get used in Gen 1, that was the Johto gym leaders. So that was kind of neat. I also, I loved Blue as a rival in the first game, but I liked how he had a rival that had a bit of a darker side to him in the second game. I wish we had gotten more of him because I do feel like at a certain point he just kind of gives it up. Even though he's not as bad as some rivals. Oh, we will get to you in later games. But also, I feel like his team should have been more balanced. Like, there were times where I thought he was a little too easy. But Rival was cool. I loved the continuity. Like, I loved how they talked about stuff that happened in the first game, and you could see how it affected stuff in the present day. In fact, something I don't ever remember seeing in promotional material back in the day that I sort of found out, as I progressed, was being able to go to Kanto. So I will never forget it. So I was in 7th grade when this game came out. And I remember I got to the Elite Four. I got to the champion, who was Lance. And I will never forget, my palms actually got sweaty. The battle was so intense because I was like, oh my god, I'm at the end of the game. I need to finish it. And then I beat Lance. The credits happened. And I wanted to make sure I saved my game. And then I found out you could go to Kanto, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I'm just thinking, oh, it's probably just to catch new Pokemon, whatever. No, you actually got to go back and battle the gym leaders that you battled in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Oh my gosh. So the reason I mentioned what grade I was in, I think I must have stayed up till about midnight, getting a couple of gym badges in Kanto. Because, man, it was just so cool to revisit, you know, the region I grew up on, or my first exposure to the game, but this time with basically a new character, a new team. So that was really cool. Um, and I like continuity. That's actually something that I really wish some of the games would start implementing more. You know, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with me that they would like continuity. Um, and then not only did I get to take on the gym leaders, but I even got to take on Red. So you got to take on yourself from the first game, and that was another battle that was really intense. And that one I can remember definitely took a while to beat. Because I will say, just like so when I was talking about Red and Blue, I mentioned I knew nothing about RPGs. I definitely had a better understanding of it, but I definitely could have been much better at playing the game. But it was not as I did not have a level 80 Meganium at the end of the game. Although it was pretty high level, but there was other stuff that was pretty well balanced too. Um, I actually think I had, because I was older, I think I had more of an appreciation for Generation 2. Because see, with Gen 1, I was 11. When you think about it, that's a child. So you just see things at face value. And since that was such a basic game, whereas this time I feel like I appreciated more the themes and everything with the game. So, because like I said, I was 13 when I got the game. So, yeah, I feel like I had a better appreciation for the game. Oh, yeah, breeding. That was another cool aspect of the game. Like how I would get the starters. So I would trade over one of the Kanto starters from Yellow, and I would breed them, and then once they hatched, I would just send the starter back to Yellow. So that was really cool to be able to have the Kanto starters on my team as well. I didn't have all three. I remember because I picked the plant starter, I had a Charizard on my team. Because I didn't want to have all three starters because it was new generation, so I wanted new Pokemon. So I talked about the good stuff that I liked about the game, but I also want to talk about the bad, well, negative, I guess, because there's a couple things. So one thing, and I don't feel like this is a problem exclusively with Gen 2. I feel like a lot of the games have this problem. I didn't like how so many of the Pokemon and promotional material you could not get till the end of the game. And I don't mean like the end of the Johto League. I mean like towards the end of the second half of the game. Like, they kept advertising Houndour and Houndoom, and you couldn't get those until, I think they were right outside Celadon City. And then Tyranitar, you couldn't even catch a Larvitar until Mount Silver, which was right before Red. And it doesn't hit the Tyranitar stage until level 55, so it's kind of like, do I really want to catch something like that and, like, level grind? Especially because, that'll bring me to my next rant. But yeah, I just didn't like how, some of the promoted Pokemon weren't available until much later. So that brings me to my next point. I feel like the level. Sometimes the easy factor was I feel like things were too underleveled. Like I can remember with the gym leaders, and Kanto, I feel like since they were post Elite Four, I feel like they should have been higher leveled. Like I can remember when I got to Brock, I pretty much just soloed him with Meganium, and Misty was the same way. Like I think I threw out my Ampharos like just to kind of mix it up a little bit. But yeah, if you had like a strong, type that was strong against the gym, like you could solo that gym with that one Pokemon, and I wish the levels had been a little better. The one change I thought was interesting was your rival from the first game, Blue, was the took over the gym after Giovanni disbanded Team Rocket. So not only was that cool continuity, but he was the only gym that really gave me a challenge because, you know, his team was balanced just like it was, when you fight him as the league champion. But it was cool to see him as the gym leader. Actually kind of, I guess, progressing in character, if you will. Now, let's talk about Crystal. I keep talking about Gold and Silver. So, I have a confession. I actually never owned the Crystal version. So, Crystal and Platinum are the only two mainline games I've never actually owned. And I'll talk about the reason for Platinum when I do Gen 4. But, so the reason I did not own Crystal, truthfully, I think I can chalk this up to a couple of reasons. So, at least for the American release of the Pokemon games, we got Red and Blue in 1998. Then we got Yellow in 1999. Then we got Gold and Silver in 2000. So I feel like, and then Crystal came out, I want to say summer of 2001. So I kind of feel like having like a new Pokemon game every year. I feel like I almost got a little fatigue from it. Whereas nowadays we get the new generation, every 2 or 3 years. So there's like time to, breathe and I guess get excited for the game. So I feel like I had a little bit of fatigue from the franchise at this point. And I think another reason is there weren't really any new features with Crystal that really made me want to just jump out and get the game. Like, the only new memorable features I recall, well, the sprites, like the Pokemon sprites now had animations, which, is cool, but, I don't feel like that's something that's going to make me go, oh my god, I have to get the game. And then the other feature was being able to play as a girl, which, is cool. But since I'm a boy, I was always going to play as the boy character. Although, not going to lie, I've definitely selected the female trainer in games before and just, named her after one of my own comic characters. But yeah, I kind of felt like those two features alone weren't enough to really make me want to jump up and get the game. I think it was fatigue and then not enough new features. But, so I do now own a Japanese version of the Crystal version, which is kind of neat. Oh yeah, and the other one was, Suicune was the version legendary. And, Suicune's cool, but it's not a legendary that really jumps out at me. I definitely think Lugia and Ho-Oh are cooler. So, that was Gen 2 for me. Another thing that I think may have impacted my, not getting crystals. So, a lot of my friends, I feel, kind of dropped off Pokemon at this point. I still loved it, but I feel like a lot of them had pretty much dropped off at Gold and Silver. I feel like they played Gold and Silver was their last hurrah with the series. But I kept going. So where would I place Generation 2 on the list of my favorite generations? So I think, where would I put it? I think I'm going to put it at rank 2. So this was definitely, to me, how you make a sequel. You really expand on it, you build onto it, and I feel like Gold and Silver did that and more. In fact, I've actually heard this was actually meant to be the last Pokemon game. So they really just threw everything to make it good, and it really shows. But, yeah, I think the only reason I wouldn't put it as number 1 is, well, when I get to my number 1, I'll go there. But, like I said, there's been updates. There was the remake, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which we will talk about when we get to Gen 4. But yeah, it was a good game, but I think that since there's been updates, kind of like with Gen 1, I feel like it's kind of obsolete in some ways. Especially because now if you own an original Game Boy cartridge, a lot of the internal save batteries don't even work anymore. So, and I'm pretty sure we'll eventually get another remake of Gold and Silver, just like how the first generation got two remakes now. When it'll get those remakes, who knows? But I'll definitely talk about that when they come out. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little recap. Tell me your favorite memories down below, and I will catch you in the next video.